Hello and welcome to another episode of the Best You interview series. It's Gary here again, and thank you as always for taking the time to tune in to today's episode. And today I'm delighted to be joined by author and life coach Peter Teuscher, who is here to discuss how redefining happiness can lead to improved mental health and productivity, both in the workplace and in your life. Peter's background includes a variety of things, including basketball coaching, entrepreneurial endeavours and management roles in the corporate world. And while he continues to coach CEOs and other top executives, Peter is passionate about helping people of all walks of life to create change in their lives and achieve their highest potential. Peter's book, which we're going to spend quite some time talking about today, Rethinking Happiness, delves into the complexities of happiness and offers a refreshing perspective on how individuals can achieve happiness on their own terms. And I think that's a key phrase that we will come back to. His approach aligns with the goals to go beyond superficial checklists and embrace deeper, more meaningful changes that foster genuine mental health and well-being. Peter, it's such an honour to have you on the show today. Thanks very much for joining me.
Gary, thanks so much for having me. It's great to be with you.
Oh, I'm delighted, absolutely delighted. So here's my theory, Peter. If someone writes a book about something they have profound experience and maybe not always positive in that particular topic to get them to a spot where they think, I have to do something about this. I have to share this message. I have to create some sort of lasting legacy or educational collateral or whatever you want to call it from that. I'm very, very interested about your life and career journey that took you on this journey to becoming a coach and then obviously in the writing of the book. Can you tell me a bit more about that?
Absolutely. And you're completely right about that. It's the challenges that we face in life that mold us, that, make us who we are, more so than anything else. And I'm no exception there. So I guess the foundation of the book came more from my personal development journey. I have a background. I'm originally from Canada. I now live over here in Europe, in Germany. But in Canada, I'd started a business with my brothers, so both very entrepreneurial, and having really quite a great life for two guys in their 20s. But at the same time, I was sort of depression that I'd experienced throughout my life had kind of reached a pinnacle. And at the time, I didn't even know what depression was. I didn't know anything about my ideas about mental health were really very poorly informed, shall we say. So I guess coming from that place, I figured when I was able to turn things around and really found a lot of joy and happiness in everyday life, I thought if I can do it, then anybody can do it. And then so when I, after getting a bunch of therapy and, doing different things, learning meditation, and incorporating all kinds of healthy practices into my life, changing a lot of my fundamental beliefs about myself and, the way the world works, it really set me free. And I ended up leaving Canada, backpacking through Asia for 6 months, and then ended up in Europe. And, when you have anybody who's ever taken 6 months off of work and regular life knows it's a very liberating experience, but then you've got to come back to reality and immerse yourself in back into the day to day. And that's what happened to me. I ended up entering the corporate world. And so for me, it was this learning to incorporate all these things, not losing the sense of myself that I'd gained through the challenges I'd overcome, and then this journey of travel. So I was really determined to make sure that I maintained a good, healthy level of happiness that I'd managed to find ways to cultivate into my life, while also working a job that was very, demanding, a lot of stress and all the usual good things you have in the corporate world, right? So yeah, and then through the process of wanting to be a better leader, I learned about coaching, and I wanted to apply some of the personal development stuff I'd learned in combination with the leadership stuff, and that led me to coaching. And I put all those things together to really write I've been writing a blog for more than 10 years as well, but I really wanted to put those concepts into a book that would help people in the same way that a coach can help people, by asking the right questions, by giving people perspective and so on. So I guess that's a kind of a long-winded answer to how did I come to writing the book, but that's in a nutshell how it all came together.
And in terms of, you know, it sounds like you didn't say this, so I guess I should ask first. When you did your 6 month traveling and discovering Peter, discovering the world,
Mm.
you were happy then, and then you were looking to try and sustain, maintain, or recreate that happiness in your new version or your new chapter of life.
Well, yeah, I maintained it pretty well, and then as you get into, you have some great habits, and then all of a sudden your life changes, or you have new responsibilities,
Mhm.
and then I was just very cognizant of the fact that I wanted to maintain the good habits that I'd kind of, it's, when you're not working, you could do yoga and meditate as much as you want all day, right?
Yeah.
But when you have a job to do, then it's a little bit harder to put it into your schedule. So I was just, wanting to, rather than just kind of seeing where the day took me, I wanted to make sure I had a morning ritual, a way to finish my day, and whenever I felt being overwhelmed by stress, or felt days where I was kind of low on energy, I just used those tools. And then it's really easy to fall back into old patterns of thinking, right? And so making sure I was continuing to use the tools that I'd learned to maintain sort of a very robust, positive outlook and approach to life.
Yeah, yeah, and it's so impactful. So in the book, one of the first key themes that really jumped out to me was the power of choice.
Hmm.
And I talk to clients, actually I talk to almost anyone who will listen to me about this. And the term I use is you're at your best in life, or you're having your most significant experiences in life when you are at choice. It's
Hmm.
when you're not at choice that you start to have some more negative thoughts and feelings and actions and behaviors as a result. And the choice part came fairly early in the book. Assuming that was purposeful, tell me your journey with choice.
Yeah, I think I went through plenty of times in my life where I felt like a victim. And
Mm.
in the book, I call it the victim trap, because it's really easy to find yourself feeling helpless and blaming everything around you. And I think it's just such a very empowering way to look at life, to recognize that, um, you know, most things, there are things around you that happen, but you can choose how you respond to them.
Yeah.
And so what's empowering about recognizing how much ability you have to choose is that wherever you are in life, if you're not happy there, if you recognize it's your choices that got you here, then you know that it's your choices that can get you out of here as well. And so that's why, I don't diminish anyone's experience who's been a victim. Certainly, plenty of people have.
Yeah.
But to live in that role for the rest of your life because of experiences of your past is really limiting and unempowering. And I'm all about helping people find strength, find their potential, and how to overcome challenges and really push beyond limits. So I think that's why the power of choice is such an important and fundamental principle in the way I live life and the way I encourage others to live it.
Yeah, and I can almost imagine the conversations that you have with your clients, because quite quickly after choice in the book came awareness.
Mm,
And the conversation literally that you just explained there, of saying your choices in some way have contributed to you getting here, whether that there could be, as you say, a traumatic event or some sort of thing that's happened that's completely outside of your control. The
mm.
only thing you get to control is your choice about how you're going to actually manifest that, and lean into that as you move forward. That creates the level of awareness, and probably a more abundant level of awareness for people that isn't always a comfortable place or space for them to be in. Do you find
No.
that?
I agree with you. I think the awareness part is so important, and especially in conjunction with choice, because a lot of times we're not aware of our own power. We're not aware of the choices that are available to us. And that's why, one of my coaching mottos is awareness allows change, because a lot of the things we're looking to change are below the level of our awareness. And a lot of them are internal. This is, I don't have to explain this to you, but the main things that stand in people's way in terms of success and their potential is themselves, and the things they've internalized, the beliefs they have, and sort of the inner roadblocks, or the traumas they haven't overcome, or whatever it may be. And so when you bring those things to the level of awareness, then you can confront them and find strategies, how to move forward. And a lot of things are also fear-based. So fear tends to linger in our periphery or in the back, lingering over us. And then when we look at it head on, we realize, oh, it's not really as big or as bad as we thought it was. And so that's where that whole awareness piece is so important. I have a systemic approach to coaching, and it's really difficult to find holistic or really long-lasting solutions to your challenges if you can't take a step back and see the big picture, right?
Yeah.
So and see the big system at play. You need to zoom into the different parts and recognize what's going on there, but you always need to be able to take that step back, and having perspective is so important, and that's all part of this awareness piece.
Yeah, it's so absolutely fundamental. And I'm glad you mentioned fear there, because I really enjoyed the portion in the book that related to fear. Because if someone was thinking from a periphery perspective to say, book about happiness, I think I'll take a look at that, and then they flick through, and then they get, wait a second, why is fear in this? And then they could flick back to the front and says, definitely a happiness book. What's happening here? And one of the things that really stuck out for me was that, what babies are born with in terms of fear.
Mm,
And they're born with a fear of loud noises and a fear of falling.
yes.
And then the rest of it, we just add on and layer in through our life journey and our life experiences as we go through. How do you manage to, conceivably, academically, and emotionally tie the two together for people to help them make strides forward in terms of their happiness?
Well, I guess first of all, to talk about the principle of the book is really certainly it's happiness is sort of the headline, but it's really helping people to develop beliefs that will support them rather than stand in their way. And
Yeah.
so I usually avoid using the term philosophy, because it usually makes people roll their eyes or go, have a yawn. But every one of us has created some kind of a philosophy, whether we call it that or not, because from the time we were old enough to think, we were putting together beliefs about ourselves, the world, and our place in it.
Yeah.
And so that's why having this set of beliefs that can guide you through life is a really fundamental piece, because I think that will lead to more happiness. And so a lot of what stands in our way is fear, and not that fear is necessarily a bad thing, but it's the way we respond to it and the way we interpret it. And so I found it was helpful for me to define fear as this sort of overarching term, and within which are lots of other kind of emotional responses that we have. Our insecurities, even things like greed or jealousy. I put those into the fear category, because when you think about it, if you're jealous, or you're it's this maybe feeling like you're not enough, or you'll never have enough. Some of you talk to psychologists, and they talk about the two of the biggest things that people negatively believe about themselves are, I'm not enough, and I'm not worthy, right? So it's recognizing that those things are a fear of ourselves not being enough. And so one of the really helpful things in my philosophy is I try and bring everything down to this dichotomy of love and fear. So however you want to define love, but I look at it as this kind of positive energy, this the sort of authentic part of me, or the authentic needs that I have. And fear is just the contrast to that. It's not something bad, it's just the contrast to that. And so when I'm making choices, or when I have certain thoughts or beliefs, I ask myself, is this based in fear or is this based in love? And for some people, using love in that context is a bit too esoteric for them, or it's a bit too woo-woo. But I find that's a really helpful one for me. But I think to your question about fear, I think it's just recognizing that the impact that fear has on us and the grip that it sometimes has on us, because I don't think I've ever made a good choice out of fear. The fear does not lead us to the places we want to go in life. And so when you can recognize that and find the resilience to overcome the fears that you face, then you'll be unstoppable.
Yeah, and it goes back to the awareness, of course,
Yes.
being foundational to everything that we have. One of the things that was really coming up for me when you were chatting there was, I say, and especially when I was doing corporate classes, when I was doing education work, and it was a corporate class, so everyone in terms of corporate would be from the same organisation, maybe not the same department, but the same organisation, and you would still see, little cliques and fiefdoms within the classroom where they all
Mm.
kind of finance sit together and HR sit over there and operations sit there and such. But ultimately, the organisation says we want these people to learn about this particular topic, whether it be project management or leadership or communication or stakeholder engagement, whatever it was. And one of the lines that I would use is, today, literally at this moment today, is the good old days. And in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years' time, you're going to look back and you're going to say, things were much better at this particular precise moment.
Yeah.
So why do we always do that in retrospect and somewhat lament in the future, rather than just enjoying it, being self-aware enough to say, what do I have today? And I think that speaks to the love. I think that's where it came up from. Love. I'm all about love. I'm a big Beatles
Mm.
fan. All you need is love. I have many
Yeah,
tattoos that say that. So
absolutely.
I'm into that. But it's that ability to be able to say, okay, it's not perfect, but what do I really enjoy, like, appreciate, benefit from, grow from, and love, and what of this circumstance and situation I'm in right now, and does that make me happy? It's okay if it does, and it's okay if it doesn't. But it'd be good to have that conversation real time rather
Mm.
than in retrospect.
Yeah, that's why I have a chapter on presence in the book, because the only place we can facilitate change is in this moment, and the only place happiness exists is in the now. Even when we're thinking about something that happened in the past or anticipating something from the future, we're doing it now. And
Yeah,
I'm stealing all this from Eckhart Tolle. So and I love the way he talks about, so many people live their lives as if the present moment were an obstacle they have to overcome,
yeah,
get to that to the future. And so a big piece of happiness is gratitude and finding appreciation in this moment. Is so what you're pointing to there. Why can't we appreciate what we have in this moment instead of always looking for what's that next thing? And and
yeah,
and I also I find that a lot of people live their lives based on these peak, they think happiness are these peak moments of enjoyment, the vacation or this success that they've had, and then everything else in between is filler. And I
mm,
think what a missed opportunity. Every day and every moment has an opportunity for joy and satisfaction and fulfillment. And if we can look for those things and learn to appreciate them, well, that in itself will make us happier. So I think happiness for me, I guess I should maybe clarify, I see happiness as this feedback loop, if this feedback, I find feelings are a great sort of navigation tool, and they guide us. And so the sense of when we're feeling happy, then it's a confirmation that the choices we're making or the way we're perceiving the world is in alignment.
yeah,
And when we're unhappy, it's just this feedback that we've made some choices that are just it's not in alignment with my values or my needs, or the way I'm looking at a situation, there's something wrong there, and my dissatisfaction is telling me that. It's when you're depressed, it's hard to see the world in a positive way, but it's often the way you're framing it that's just causing that downward spiral. And the same thing goes if we're coming from anger or frustration,
Right.
and again, those are two things that I equate to being fear-based, right? So when
Yeah.
we're angry, we're maybe afraid of some kind of loss or being taken advantage of, or something like that. And framing it that, I'm not saying that's the theory everyone should live by, but I'm saying framing it that way really helps me.
Yeah. And one thing I kind of preach to most people that I talk to, and certainly on my daily social media information that I share, is there's information all around you, all
Hmm.
day, every day. Should you decide to stop, pause, and pay a bit more attention, you have information now that you didn't have before. You
Yeah.
can use that information in a variety of ways. You could use it for good, you could use it for not so good, and it's completely up to you. And I think that's a real it's a real gift if people were just to stop, slow down,
Hmm.
take a pause, take a breath, look at the good, and then kind of move on from there. So, in terms of happiness in general, I probably should have asked at the beginning, what does happiness mean to you? I'm glad you inserted it kind of partway through the interview to get a little bit more steam in terms of the inspiration and some of the content in the book. But one of the key things I got from the book was the somewhat subjectivity of what happiness can and will mean to different people, and the different philosophies that are out there to say, is it a destination? Is it something to pursue? As in, I will be happy if slash when this particular event comes to manifestation or something like that. The real genuine feeling I got from that was it just means different things to
Yeah.
different people.
Exactly. And, I've had a number of different coaching clients that will come to me that will say, look, I've done all these things with my life and I'm still not happy. In other words, I've gone to university, got the career, got the career, maybe they even have kids and family, financial abundance, who knows, or all the above. And then they are still unhappy, and they come to me going, well, look, I've checked all the boxes, and yet I'm
Yeah,
still not there where I thought I would be. And there's multiple reasons for that. But that's because they've taken this sort of culturally dictated definition of what happiness is, and
yeah,
they've strived for that. And I think that's where people go wrong, because it is something different for everyone, and it's also not this external results thing. It's an inside job, and
yeah,
so I think if anyone's thinking that they're not, they'd like more happiness in their life, or they're not quite feeling as happy as they'd like to, uh, start by defining what happiness means to you. Otherwise, you'll be chasing these things that the marketeers have told you, or culture, or the examples from within your family, and those might not be suited for you. And so, taking some time to deeply consider what it is that makes you happy is a really important first step.
yeah. And how do you literally do that with your clients? Is it the way I would do it, based on the information you just shared there, was to say, tell me about the last time you were genuinely happy, and let's explore that. Let's explore how you were feeling. Let's explore the external situation that was going on at the time. Is it somewhat similar for you? I know it would be dependent on each client, but is there a general theme of how you get to that?
Yeah, if happiness is, and I don't call myself a happiness coach. It's usually ends up being a result of the work I do with clients. But
Yeah,
if someone is asking me that question, I'll try and tease out of them, well, what's their current perception of what happiness means,
yeah,
and then I will reflect back to them some other potential ways of looking at it, and from there we take their sort of core beliefs about what happiness is, recognize the ones that are useful, or that are in alignment with what they, and then from this new perspective of looking at it from different angles, or asking some challenging questions, that where it's like, well, if someone who thinks that happiness is retiring on a beach with umbrella drinks is, there's some easy questions I can ask that would dispel that myth. But
yeah,
if people think, well, I'll be happy when, whenever people are making these statements, if then kind of statements, where if this would happen, then I'll be happy, then that will always be something that's out there in the future, right? So
yeah,
it's usually, as coaching is, a series of questions to challenge people's current beliefs and help them evolve into a definition that's clearer and more helpful to them.
One of the key things that I saw in the book that really jumped out at me, because I haven't ever seen this word before, was eudaimonic happiness, which is really connected to meaning, purpose, and self-actualization, which is deeper work than maybe some superficial or beginner type work you would maybe do from a happiness perspective. How did that make its way into the book, and how prevalent is that in terms of your overall work towards happiness that you might embark upon with clients?
Yeah, I think it's something that people, if you haven't thought about what happiness means to you, they probably haven't come across it, because a lot of times we associate pleasure and happiness in a lot of ways, and that's referred to as hedonic, hedonistic happiness, and then. And so when we're very pleasure focused, that's very fleeting, right? So that comes and goes. But when we have this deep sense of fulfillment, and Maslow talked about this, Abraham Maslow, with his hierarchy of needs, this self-actualization, and he determined that this is, once we've fulfilled all of our other needs, roof over our heads, enough food, the basic necessities, and then the culture, the social necessities, being loved, and so on. Then we get to this point of needing self-actualization. And you can see this confirmed in lots of research. I'm a big fan of, and here's another name that took me a while to practice, Mihai Csikszentmihalyi, the Hungarian-American psychologist who really brought the term flow into modern terminology. And so one of the things he talks about when it comes to getting into the flow state is, you need to have something that that's fulfilling and enjoyable. He talks about, even in terms of, it makes you happy, but it also needs to be challenging, so you're not getting bored, right? So when you combine these two things, that something that captivates your interest, but you really enjoy doing it, and you find happiness in the doing of it, then that's the sort of the gateway to getting into this flow state. So that's why I think happiness and this, the type of authentic happiness that makes us feel like we're living a full life, we're living authentically. Those are, words will only point you in the direction, right? They'll never define it 100% for you, because everyone will experience it a little differently. But so those are just a few things to kind of point people in that direction of what eudaimonic happiness means. And I think anyone who's ever done something that's really they've found a great deal of satisfaction in it will know what we're talking about here. Yeah. And so if you've experienced that, do more of that, incorporate more of that in your life.
And again, once again, not to repeat myself, but that goes back to that level of awareness, awareness in the moment, awareness retroactively, to say, when was I in flow, and how did that manifest itself? How did it come about? What did I do when I was there? How long was I there? And what happened afterwards as well? So I love that kind of encapsulation of the awareness. Another part, kind of coming towards the end of the book, was your thoughts and philosophies around affirmations, and how affirmations have had an impact on your life. Can you tell me a bit more about that?
Yeah, it's funny. Some people will smirk when I talk about affirmations, because they have this idea of I'll sit in front of the mirror and tell myself, I'm great, I'm good enough, I'm smart enough, and I use it's one of the tools that I use to help people change their chronic ways of thinking or their beliefs. But I'm very specific about the way I use affirmations, and I've used them myself, and I've lots of my clients have used them. But basically, we look at sort of a topic that is occupying someone's thoughts. Usually in a negative way. It could be a worry. It could be something that's undermining them in certain situations. They get anxiety or whatever. So we'll look at a certain topic, and then we'll create a statement that confirms the opposite. So it's a statement that's that's in the now. So you say it as if it had already happened. It's worded in the positive. So it's not I don't do this or I'm not this. It's I am this or I can do this, and it needs to be believable to you. So if you say I'm a millionaire and your bank account's at bare minimum, then that's not going to be very believable to you. But if you say I believe with hard work and determination I can be, so you kind of moderate it so that it's believable to you, and then you can scale it up. Once you get good at one level of an affirmation, you can make it more more impactful. But what happens is that when you repeat those affirmations, every time these negative thoughts come on this topic, you have this kind of affirmation in your back pocket and you start repeating it over and over. And what you'll find is that those negative thoughts will dissipate. And when they come again, you repeat them. And so, and then over time, they'll just, your thoughts are this network in your brain. And if you think something, you'll attract more similar thoughts, right? And so, just like the old, if you, don't think about your kitchen, and then first thing you're going to think about is, what does my kitchen look like? So it's these prompts that we get that bring all these thoughts in. And so the affirmation is a statement that helps you dispel and dissipate those thoughts. I really like to use the metaphor of, it's like when you're walking through the forest and you've walked this path for a long time, and you want to take a new direction. First of all, you've got to try and get through all the brush and everything, but eventually you'll create a new path. And if you don't walk the other one, it'll grow over. And the same thing is for the neural pathways in your brain, right? So the more you think a thought, the more those neural pathways become deeply connected. So your a thought is nothing more than a number of neurons firing together and creating a bond, and then you weaken that bond if you stop thinking that thought. And so that's kind of the visual I try to give people, and that's why I think affirmations work really well and really help people.
Yeah, it's incredible, how powerful they can be. And even just framing it the way that you framed it there, Peter, in terms of, it has to be believable, it has to be realistic, it has to be in the positive and something memorable, something that you can do. I have my own personal affirmation that I say most nights when I go to bed, and I
Excellent.
genuinely believe it. It's one of the last things I remember as I fall asleep, and that's my direction, that's my summation of the day, and that's my intent as I go in to the next day. And one thing, just when you were talking about the brush there, are creating a new path, and the brush, for some reason, what really came up for me, one of the times that I'm most happy, I love to run. And I love to run, specifically, I love to run outside when the weather's nice. And when the weather's not nice, I love to run outside as well, but it's just a wee bit colder.
Yeah.
It's a wee bit more hassle, but one of the things that sometimes, because I run fairly regularly, is that do you ever get when you drive somewhere and then you arrive at your destination and you kind of can't remember the journey? You're there, you're safe, everything's okay, and you're on time or whatever your parameters were, and you're kind of like, was I paying attention? Like, obviously you were. Hopefully there's not a wake of destruction in your way. I experienced that when I was running. I got to the point where I would finish the run and I would think, I don't remember anything. And I live in a nice area. There's lots of nice, I look at the Rocky Mountains. There's lots of lovely, trees and woodland and such around, various areas. So what I started to do was I would pay much more attention, especially on an out and back, basically just going straight out and straight back, because you would see completely different things on both ways. You come out, you're looking, it depends on the time of day, the sun is maybe rising or maybe dipping or whatever that looks like. And just that self-awareness to really just genuinely soak it in. And that's, I say that as my own happiness example, is times when I've thought, boy, oh boy, how fortunate am I to be able to do this in such a beautiful area, to have the health that I've got, to be able to look and just soak it up as I see people scurrying past and driving past and doing, whatever their life needs and desires are at that particular time. And then when I do the turnaround and I come back, it's the exact same path, but it looks completely different. on
Yeah.
the way back as I come back to my destination. And I'm just saying that, and I'm almost getting goosebumps as I talk about it now. But I haven't done it for quite some time. It's winter, so I haven't been
Mm.
outside quite as much. You know, the tread gets a wee bit more pounding than the pavement for right now. But those, like charting the path, paying attention to the
Mm.
path, and literally in the moment, just saying, this
Yeah.
is incredible. How fortunate.
Yeah. And gratitude is such a powerful tool. It's really impossible to be unhappy and grateful at the same time. And so, and sort of a 1 degree down from that deep gratitude is just appreciation in the moment. And there are, I'm a big fan of Thich Nhat Hanh. Sadly, he passed away. I think it's 2 years ago now. But he really brought mindfulness to Western culture, especially in North America. But and I've got a reminder of his on my phone. He talks about whenever you're overwhelmed or whatever, pause, breathe, smile. And that brings you right back into the moment. And I think that's when, what I was talking about, these people are looking for these peak experiences, and there's so much to appreciate in every moment. And I, especially during COVID, I really found I appreciated where I live more. I'm very fortunate. I live in a beautiful green area of the city of Hamburg in Germany, but I have kilometers where I can just walk the dog, it's astonishing to me when I have days where the sun is shining and the birds are singing, and then I see someone pass me with a scowl on their face, and I
Yeah.
think, how is it that possible for you? How is that in this? You're clearly not looking around at where you are, and the truth is that's exactly what's happening. They're so lost in some negative thought, some worry, or some kind of disagreeable kind of experience they've just come out of or whatever. So I try not to judge them, but I have so much difficulty putting myself in their shoes, because
Yeah.
in this environment, this is why you come to nature, to really ground yourself and to let all of that stuff go. So and look, nature is such an important one, so I hope I add this. There was a study done in Leipzig, Germany, just a few years ago, where it showed that parts of the city where people lived that were lined with trees and had parks and so on, compared to areas that were just kind of streets and stone buildings, the areas with the green and the nature had a strong decrease. So the correlation was that they had much less prescriptions of antidepressants compared to the areas that were just kind of stone. And so that's a correlation, that nature is so important to us. And when you talk about ways to, you talk about running, motion, getting yourself in motion, getting yourself in nature, taking the time to breathe. Those are all just such, uh, you know, cost-free
Yeah.
things that you can do to bring yourself back into the moment and find more moments of happiness.
Absolutely. You know, it's funny you say, talking about walking past someone with a scowl on their face, or some other kind of, less than positive demeanor around them.
Mm.
Especially in the summertime, I like to run in the morning before it gets too hot, before the bugs come out and all sorts
Mhm.
of stuff like that. And there's certain days that are busier than others, but if I get a bit of a routine going in terms of timing, I kind of see the same people out at the same time. So then I play this internal game to say, right, I'm shooting for 100%. When I say good morning, that they're going to say good morning back,
Mm.
and it's never 100%, never 100%. And I'm kind of like, and I understand it, because there's this little, baldy skinhead guy running with all these tattoos running towards them in the morning. They're probably like, whoa, wait a minute here, and then I go, good morning. And they're just kind of perplexed. And, 1 minute they're ready to fight or flight. And then the next minute they're kind of like, that seemed quite polite. I'm not exactly sure what that looks like. The simple fact is, we have no idea what's going on in their life at that particular moment. Maybe I'm disturbing their peace in the morning, where they're like, hey,
Mm.
I thought this was just me that was here right now, or whatever that looks like. But it gives you that opportunity to at least try and interact, to at least try and affect some sort of positive change, even if in the beginning they go, oh, I feel bad now because I didn't say good morning. but I'm going to say good morning tomorrow if I see him then, or I'm going to say good morning to the first person that I see. So in some way, there's been a
Yeah.
positive influence on that person and possibly others as they pay it forward.
Yeah, even just smiling at someone, even if they're just sometimes it's not even that people their neutral sort of state looks kind of maybe it's just their practiced expression
Yeah,
is quite
it's just
an
a
unhappy
face.
one. And
Yeah,
and so just even giving someone a smile, or a nod, or just acknowledging them, can be something that leaves them with something positive. I've been seen, and there's good people out there in the world. I find it so funny that when you talk about this, saying good morning, the people that always say good morning to each other are the dog walkers. It's like we're part of this community. But when
yeah,
you pass someone who doesn't have a dog, I almost go, well, they don't want me to say good morning because I never say it to me. So, but
yeah.
that's a good reminder from you there that even if someone doesn't seem willing, it's fine to make the first step, right?
Yeah, and the worst that happens, they don't say anything back, and it's a 1 second interaction of my life.
What have you got to lose?
Exactly, exactly. So in terms of one of the key wrappers, I guess I could say towards the end of the book is the absolute dedication to practice,
Yes.
to continuing to have patience with the process. It's not going to be perfect first time. It's probably not going to be perfect. It's a constant work in progress. I think is probably the best way to do that. Do you see people struggling with that where they say, I tried it and I did what you said and it didn't work. So plan B. Is there a kind of propensity to give up, or do people understand and appreciate the investment that's required?
Yeah, I think that's why coaching is helpful, because then it's a accountability partner and someone to keep you motivated, because
Yeah.
it's easy to get discouraged. It's easy to fall back into old habits and triggers that initiate old habits. Uh, a lot of people want these want instant gratification. They want the pill that's going to make them look better, feel better. And it's not an easy solution. It takes work. I mean, I took years, and a big part of the work is changing your beliefs and your thinking habits. And you've taken a lifetime to accumulate them, and then you expect a couple of days to get rid of them all,
Yeah. Yeah.
and that's just not going to happen. So the thing is, I just remind people that the more you do it, the easier it gets.
Yeah.
Every step towards where you want to get to is an improvement, and you can. And this comes back to the awareness. We keep pointing to this, and just being honest with yourself, because a lot of times people don't realize how far they've come. They'll meditate for a month and go, "Oh, this isn't working." But then they go back into their old state and they realize, actually, I was feeling a lot better, when I had a regular practice of doing this, or did breathing exercises, or whatever it is that people do in order to for that self improvement. And so that's why practice and patience is something that goes hand in hand, because being patient with yourself, we all have this inner narrator. We all have an inner critic that gives commentary, and often in a negative way. Often it's that one of our parents, a nagging voice, if we had that kind of a parent or caregiver. And the thing is, we've gotten so used to hearing that, and we start to believe all these things that we're telling ourselves. And so as soon as we don't get the results we want in a week or two, immediately we jump, oh, it's not working for me.
Yeah.
It works for other people, but it's just not for me. And so we find these excuses, and pretty soon we fall back into these old habits. But it means taking some patience with yourself. Any habit to change, just one habit, there's different theories on it, but you're probably looking at least 30 days to change a habit. So if you've got a whole list of things you want to change about yourself and you're expecting to change them in 2 weeks, how realistic is that? You
Yeah.
need to have this plan for a year. January, I'm changing this habit. February, I'm doing this one. And ideally, maybe even give yourself 2 months, right? So,
Yeah.
and then continue to practice the things until you feel it take hold. Because every time you have a setback, it's almost like a bit of a reset, and you have to get back into the flow of it. So yeah, I think that's so important. When you learn something new, continue to practice it. have patience with your ability to develop, and don't expect instant results. And then another really great thing is when you learn something new, teach it to someone else. That's an old trick from Stephen Covey. He
Yeah.
talks about you learn something new, teach it to someone else within the first 48 hours because that helps anchor it within yourself. And
Yeah.
so, if you're having success with something, spread the good word, and it'll make you feel better. And then when someone else has success, it just kind of there's this self-affirming loop that you start with.
Yeah.
So yeah, those are all incorporated in that idea of practice and being patient with yourself.
Yeah, I love it. And it's a perfect segue. This, of course, is the Best You coaching podcast. And what is one particular practice that you employ that allows Peter to be the best version of himself?
I think the fundamentally biggest thing that changed my life was learning to meditate, and people. Well, now there's lots of research that confirms that meditation is such an important thing. I start my day with meditation. For some people, they like to do it in the evening, but just 10 minutes a day of meditation can fundamentally change your state, the way your fluctuations in mood, your ability to think clearly. And so I don't, if I have years ago, I had a period where I kind of got out of the habit or only did it sporadically. And I really noticed a difference after a couple of months, and I got back into the old habit of doing it. And so I think meditation by far is and get someone to teach you how to do it, because you're bound to tell yourself, it doesn't work for me, I can't do it. When someone can help you understand the state to get into, and then once you're there and you can have it for a prolonged period, you'll start to see results, and it'll change your life. It'll help you control, the flow of your thoughts, and most importantly, make you aware that you can control.
Yeah.
It's not like you can stop your thoughts from coming, but you can choose which thoughts to focus on, and that makes all the difference in the world. So yeah, for me, meditation was the thing that had among many other things, but it was something that had a tremendous impact on my life.
Fantastic. Before I let you go, my friend, where can people find out more about you?
The best way is my website, peterteuscher.com, and the last name is spelled Teuscher. It's difficult to pronounce for native English speakers. But yeah, peterteuscher.com. I write a weekly blog, so anything we've discussed will come up there. I write on a wide variety of topics, that maybe come out of discussions with clients or just my observations. It's a link to the book, and also if anybody wants to reach out, ask me a question, or book a session with me, that's the best way.
Fabulous. It's been an absolute pleasure. I am happier because of this experience, and I hope you are too. I can't thank you enough for coming on the show today, Peter. I really appreciate it.
Thanks so much for having me. It's been great to talk to you.